It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, August 18th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is relieved Tyson Foerster is going to be okay.
Yeah, it's good news.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Indeed, we heard via Bill Meltzer that Tyson Foerster will be good to go for the season start, or is very likely, I guess, is what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, I don't think they expect a flare up or anything. I guess, they either went back in and it looks good or it just looked good and he's healing up fine. And so, yeah, I expect it to be good. Now, when they're saying that he'll be ready for the opener, does that mean he'll be there right at the beginning of camp? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter.
No, I think as long as he's like coming back at the right speed, honestly, that's what I care about the most. I don't want them to rush him back, but if he's ready to go at the beginning of camp, great. But don't rush him because I don't want him getting hurt again.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want it to be a Risto situation or something like that. I mean, they've had some bad luck with some of these things. So this is good news for them to start the season. Maybe alleviates the pressure they maybe were going to put on Alex Bump. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think it would be a lot of fun. I know when we talked about the potential lineup and the forwards that, he could be on that line with Zegras and Michkov to start the season.
Yeah, and that would be a great line, and it would certainly benefit him too. So yeah, it would be fun to see. I think fans would love it.
I think so too. I think that would be just a tremendous, young line to start the season. I think with a lot of energy and a lot to prove for all of them, as we've been talking about for a good part of this off season here. So I am excited to see where he ends up in Rick Tockett's scheme here as we get closer to the season. And the Flyers will be official in the Xfinity Mobile Arena. They put the new letters up on the building. It's purple. It's weird to get used to, but kind of fun at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What is it, the fifth, sixth time, whatever it is.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot of names at this point. So
I think it started out as the Core States
Core
Center.
States, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Core States, First Union, something else,
Yes.
Wells Fargo, now this.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Considering everything, and we know Comcast owns the team and the arena, and so something Comcast related was going to be it for these last 5 years before the new building is built. And so Xfinity Mobile Arena, I think it is fine. We talked about it. It's having it be arena versus center. It's always been something center.
Right.
So to switch that to arena is a little awkward, but we'll get used to it.
Yeah, I don't use the name anyhow, so it won't matter to me.
Well, you got to have some sort of nickname for it. So we'll see what settles in. I know there's lots of options out there, and I'm feeling actually pretty good about it relative to what the Tampa Bay Lightning's new arena name is that they just announced, and it was like flipping a switch. It took like a day. It went from Amalie Arena to Benchmark International Arena, which is named after a mergers and acquisitions firm. So that's exciting for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, hockey's a tough sport and that's a tough business.
I know. So that is a weird name for a hockey arena for sure. But that's where the Lightning are going to be playing for the time being. Now, on Friday's show, we had a great time talking to Kelly Hinkle of Broad Street Hockey. And as part of that conversation, we mentioned our poll question from last week and got her input on what she thought about Travis Konecny and his kind of place in the league-wide conversation, because that's something we've been thinking about. And one of the reasons why we've been thinking about it is the Locked On NHL channel is going to be doing a top 100 players in the NHL right now. And, we're all submitting our candidates for that list, and then they're going to get voted on, and then we'll talk about it. And when Russ and I were talking, we said, we're going to submit Travis Konecny. We'll put Matvei Michkov in there because we have to put more than one. But pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I'm not putting anybody else, and I think Michkov will make it. And that really is it. Like, I don't think there's anybody else, because it's not like you can project and just say, oh, well, Foerster's going to score 60 points this year, so he'll be in it. You can't project that, so that's why.
Right. And that's why we talked about all that last week. Like last Monday's show, we talked about Travis Konecny. And then on Wednesday's show, we talked about other potential guys. And Michkov was the only other one we could come up with. So that's why we submitted those two names. We'll see how they come out in the wash in the voting. And we will absolutely
they only vote one in,
talk
then
about
we'll
it on the
rumble.
show. Yeah. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. But we asked you out there about Travis Konecny as well, and asked, where does Travis Konecny fit in the NHL league-wide top forwards conversation? And the options we gave you were undervalued, overrated, and evaluated just right. And when all was said and done in that poll, undervalued just beat out evaluated just right. I wouldn't say by a hair, but it was pretty close. It was 48% to 43%, with 8% at overrated. So
that's what I was kind of
thinking.
Yeah, I think I think it is more complicated than just saying it and not saying any kind of reason. I think there's a lot of reasons why, people give the different answers. But, I think in the end, if this were a better team, like this were a playoff team for like the last 2-3 years, and he was getting these numbers, then you'd be like, okay, all right. No, he's not undervalued, but they're not a playoff team. They haven't been a playoff team. So I do think that changes the meaning of his numbers and such.
Yeah, the team you play on obviously has an effect on that, and the reputation of the team overall, even if you are the best player. And I think, there are exceptions to that rule. I would say Connor Bedard is maybe one of them.
Right.
But Travis Konecny is nowhere near an exception to the rule.
Nobody's saying he's on Connor Bedard,
right?
So, right. Yeah.
Right. So I think, some of the comments were pretty good around that. And Robert said, I believe he's been evaluated just right. He had skill. He's in his prime. He has a decent chance of making Canada's Olympic team. But that's what people say about him. So it makes sense, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that he is tracking for that.
Yeah, and a similar comment from El Camo 11. He's evaluated just right. He's a top line winger by being a top 64 winger in the NHL for sure. However, he's not a nobody saying he is an elite top 15 winger.
Right.
Which, that's what he said. Yeah, I think so. Now, Dave Town looks at the undervalued aspect of that conversation. I think TK is slightly undervalued. The current Flyers team has been so bad. If TK were on a good team and had good, steady line mates, he'd be scoring 80 or 90 points. He must be so tired of playing with third and fourth line quality players. I hope this team can turn it around soon.
Yeah, I mean, the mayor of Russtown agrees.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. And that's kind of what we've been talking about. And Joe says, if you watched any of the Four Nations, it's clear he's right where he should be, possibly a little high, considering some of the wingers that were not on the roster for whatever reason. He is and has been the best player on a poor team. As much as I love his game, he would not be a top line winger on a contender, but most contenders would love to have him. And I think that's
true.
The delicate balance, right?
Yeah, that's the line you straddle. And I do think every team would want him. And I do think he's right that he wouldn't be a top liner on every team. That's all right.
Yeah, that's what I just thought was such a good point there, that he's not a top line winger on a contender, but contenders want him. Like that's
Right.
exactly like the
Yeah,
line
it's
you want to tread
nuanced.
here.
It's nuanced.
Yeah, really like that from Joe McCloskey. There were a couple good comments on him being overvalued. John said he's not an elite star. He's too streaky, at times undisciplined, good enough for this rebuilding team, but won't see the late years of his contract or a championship here.
It's possible. We don't know that yet.
Yeah, I think he's was more streaky than he has been.
Hmm.
And last year, I wouldn't call him streaky. I would call him very good until after Four Nations when he got
Right.
exhausted and just couldn't get it together for the
Right.
late part of the season. It was a
His
very
game
distinct
broke down.
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's something to be said for that, but it's not exactly on target there. But hopefully we get an excellent Travis Konecny re-energized from this off season. We will have another poll question for you later in the show. Up next, we are going to talk about the latest with Marco Rossi and Mason McTavish and ask, is the market cooling off for these guys and guys like them in the NHL?
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401ks, their properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. That's bad for Rachel. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those alone saved me money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code Locked On NHL.
I am spreadsheet girl, so I'm going to take that personally, Russ. Anyway, we will be answering your mailbag questions on the Wednesday show. To make sure you get those in, you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. So as of this moment, Mason McTavish on the Anaheim Ducks and Marco Rossi on the Minnesota Wild are still properties of those particular teams. And they're guys that have had trade rumors around them all off season, as well as contract extension conversations. And it's been this back and forth wild swing here. And the fact that neither have been dealt or offer sheeted or signed to long-term extensions, and we're starting to creep towards training camps now. So, like, is it something particular to these guys, or is it something about the market here?
I think it's all of it. I mean, right now, I would say offer sheets are dead. And teams just don't have an appetite for them because a lot of players just got re-signed because the cap went up. So they were like, oh, what are we doing? Like now, like with McTavish, like we knew he wasn't going anywhere. I think he'll sign before camp. I don't think he has as much leverage as Rossi. I feel like Rossi's a different story. But as far, I'm sure the Flyers asked for McTavish. The price was probably too high. And so they got Zegras instead.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how it went. And a lot of teams asked about McTavish, but the price was really high. Why? Because he's a really good player. And so they're going to come to terms with him. It's probably going to end up being a bridge deal. Now, Rossi is a little different because he is a center. And even though he's a smaller guy, he plays bigger, but he could play 2C. And so because of that, he has some leverage because the team can't do without him. So I do think he'll be like a camp holdout. And I think it'll roll into that. And instead of getting 7 years, I think they'll end up with 4 or 5. And it'll be probably right around that AAV. I think they're balking at the years because they see he's a smaller guy and they're worried that he'll get banged up. But he plays tough. And I think, for 4 or 5, you wouldn't even worry about it.
Right. Now, with Marco Rossi, I think that's a really good point to start at. He can play 2C, but he didn't
Right.
toward the latter half of the season. And so I think that's where the team is saying, you're asking for 2C money, but you are not a 2C. And we have the evidence to prove it here based on the fact that you were 3C and sometimes a 4C at some point
Yeah, the
during
4C I
this
think
part
was a
of the
coach.
season.
Yeah, I think that was a coach thing more than a player thing. The 2C, it's like,
But
if they're-
ultimately, that doesn't matter because you can, as the team, if you're negotiating, you can just say that's what it was on paper, whether it was deserved or not. He was a
Sure.
4C
And then
for
my
parts of
answer
the
back to you is, if
season.
there's an injury, he's back to being your 2C too. So
Oh,
let's
totally.
yeah.
I know. I'm just playing devil's
I know.
advocate negotiator on behalf
Right.
of the Minnesota Wild here in that conversation with Marco Rossi's agent. But I think that also the other factor there is the Matt Boldy contract, because obviously we know Matt Boldy is a much better player than Marco Rossi, and Boldy's contract is 7 years, 7 million,
But those
and
are
I think
old
he's in.
prices.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, so you know that Marco Rossi isn't worth 7 times 7, but with the cap going up and the inflation that you're getting along
Yep.
with it, does that even things out and make Marco Rossi think he can get 7 million?
I think because he's a center, he'll get really close to that. If he's not getting 7, it'll be 6, 7, 5. And if he's not getting the 7 years, it'll be 4 or 5. But I think he'll be a camp holdout, though. I think, because if I were his agent, I'd be like,
Yeah.
don't rush in there. Wait till let them look at what their team looks like without you and see what happens. McTavish is a different story. Like, Anaheim's not expected to make the playoffs, right? Minnesota is.
Right.
They
They're
need
going to get better though. The Ducks are going to get better. They're just still
yes.
not going to make the playoffs in my
Right.
opinion.
Right. So the Ducks can be like, all right, if you want to hold out, hold out. We're not expecting a big season here. Minnesota can't afford to have Rossi hold out for the regular season for parts of it, because they need to start off hard, because they need to make the playoffs. Like, they're built for that.
Yeah, I feel like Rossi is more likely to be a holdout going into
Yeah.
camp than McTavish for that reason, and because there's no really good reason for McTavish to hold out at this point. Now,
No.
if he thinks that he can get a bigger piece of the bigger pie that's coming down the pike and he wants to hold out for that, I mean, more power to him. I guess give it a shot, but I just don't think ultimately he's going to win that battle in the end, because the
No, he
Ducks can
won't win.
afford to wait him out.
Right.
At
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
point.
Verbeek's not going to lose that battle. No way.
No. And then I think, to bring this around to why we're talking about this relative to the Flyers, I think, is that this is with some of the kinds of players that the Flyers have now, or players that the Flyers could be targeting in, whether it's trade deadline, when
Right.
they are, God willing, buyers at some point,
Right.
and when they are looking to negotiate with their current players and look for free agents and future negotiations. These are two guys that I think are prime examples of the kind of future the Flyers could be looking at on those fronts, right?
Yeah, I think even for these players, they would be buyers, in the sense that, hey, they would do it this year too, because they're young and they have bright
Right.
future still. So I think they would still be considering themselves buyers in that kind of market.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's interesting because I don't think that either one of these guys are key pieces in a championship team, but they're certainly, I think, assets to any team that
Yeah, I
are
think
looking to make a run, right?
Minnesota's not the deepest offensively, and
No.
and Rossi did put up really good points. So I do think he has actual more value than McTavish, even though you could look at McTavish, say he's bigger, maybe he'll be a better player in a few years. That may be true, but they need Rossi because they don't have a ton of offensive options.
Right. Right. And that's where, I look at a player on the Flyers like Owen Tippett and his contract, right?
Right.
And try and compare the two, because I feel like Owen Tippett is a guy that has that kind of play in him, but hasn't shown it yet. And he's still making over 6 million a year.
Yep.
And I think that's where you kind of have to level set that you do overpay sometimes for these guys, or give them extra term. So, I think it's good in some ways that the Flyers kind of took care of a bunch of their RFAs that are in that tier this year, so they can deal with the Michkov contract coming down the road, and some of the other ones as well. But it just feels like this Rossi situation in particular is a good level set for Flyers fans about what contract negotiations are going to look like over the next couple of years.
Oh yeah, no, there's going to be. I mean, the Flyers are going to be right to the cap like everybody else. They're going to. It's the way it is.
They're going to try to not be, because they're going to need to hold out space for Michkov, like we said, and for whether it is a 1C or, in my opinion, more importantly, a top defenseman. At this point, given we have a lot of very good centers, but not a great center, I think that could be enough for now. As we talked about with Kelly on the Friday show, and her thought about like switching the plan to having a lot of really good wings and some very good centers, but not elite centers. And if that's what we're doing, we got to use that cap space for the top defenseman, right?
Yeah, I
or
agree.
A goaltender.
Yeah, I think they have to use the. But again, I'm including, like, when I say they're going to be at the cap, when they sign Michkov, they're going to be at the cap.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge contract, and he's certainly going to be making more than Sean Couturier.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. Well, we'll see if those deals with the Ducks and the Wild get done before camp, and see if they are a harbinger for the Flyers down the road in their contract negotiations. In the meantime, it is Monday, so we will have a new poll question for you, plus our Nemesis of the week coming up next. All right, so at the beginning of the show, we talked about Tyson Foerster and his injury status. Looks like the surgery went well and he'll be in good shape for the beginning of the season. Like we said, we don't know if he's going to be there at the very beginning of camp or come in a little late, but all indications are that he will be playing in Game 1 in October. And that is a good sign. And, as we talked about with the potential line that he could be on, he will certainly be in the top 6 of this team, if not getting some top line time, if Rick Tocchet is shuffling the deck a little bit to try and figure out what works well within his system. I do believe Tyson Foerster will be kind of a mainstay of that top 6. So our new poll question of the week then is about Tyson Foerster, asking, does the Tyson Foerster news make you more confident about the Flyers getting off to a good start? And your options here, there are 4 of them. Yes, he's a key part of the offense. No, the team's results don't hinge on his play. Everyone's going to be adjusting to the new system, so it doesn't matter. And lastly, it depends on who his line mates are. So there's slight differences to these options here. Let us know which one of them you think is the most appropriate relative to Tyson Foerster and your confidence in the Flyers getting off to a good start this season. When you answer the question, make sure you vote and let us know why you picked what you did. Or if you have an answer that's none of these 4, let us know what that is in the comments as well. There'll be a link to the poll in our show notes, and it is on our YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed so you can see all of the poll questions as they come up each week. Now, it is also Monday with our Nemesis of the week. Again, one of my favorite times of the week, because I get to talk about what's bugging me in the world of hockey or in general, and I get to hear interesting rants from Russ here, and that is always a highlight of my week. So last week, I talked about the potential undervaluing of Flyers league-wide, that guys that perform well on a not great team. And that's why we talked specifically about Travis Konecny last week, as well as some of those other guys. And this will lead toward this top 100 NHL players that we're doing over at Locked On NHL. So it was top of mind for me, and that's why I had that as my Nemesis of the week last week. You talked about creating drama around questioning Gavin McKenna as the presumptive first overall pick in next year's draft. You said it was too soon. It was way too soon. And you still think that, I assume, right?
Yep. Definitely think it.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned Locked On NHL, and I am the co-host of the Friday show over there. We talked about the arena name change to the Xfinity Mobile Arena. And last Friday on the Locked On NHL show, Gil Martin and I talked about arenas around the NHL and, what are the newest ones? What are the newest ones being announced? Where are they doing renovations? And what makes a good NHL arena as far as the gameplay, the experience, and does it matter as long as the hockey's good? Do you not even care about what the atmosphere is like as long as the team is winning? And I think as a result of that conversation, I was thinking about it. So my nemesis this week is arenas that don't consider hockey enough in their multi-purposeness. We all know these arenas, they have basketball, they have concerts, they have hockey, there's some mix of things. Sometimes they have indoor lacrosse or like monster trucks and all these different kinds of events. And they have to consider all of this when they're designing the buildings for acoustics and temperature and lighting and all of these things. And, one of the things that Gil and I talked about, the old Joe Louis Arena, the lighting was one of the most atrocious things I have ever experienced in person and on TV. You could not see in those corners. And now they have Little Caesars Arena, which is much, much better for the Red Wings. But sometimes these buildings just don't consider hockey as much as the other things in their multi-purpose arena. And you can tell. You can absolutely tell when that's the case. So that is my nemesis of the week.
That's a good one. I'll give you one too. Mine is, and I'm pretty sure they did away with this. I'm pretty sure they did away with parallel parking on driving tests. And I want to say that there's an inordinate amount of people that can't parallel park. And if you can't parallel park, that's either a failing from your parents or a failing from your driver's ed class. It's just, I'm in cities and I see people passing up spots left and right because they just cannot parallel park. It's not that hard. You don't have to buy a car that does it for you. There's a science to it, and you do it until you get it right. Guess what? I always feel great about myself if I could do it on the first shot, and many times I do. There's times I don't, and I don't care. I'll redo it, but I'm going to do it. And if I need that spot, I'm going to get that spot. I'm not going to pass it up. And if you're in a city that's really like tight, like a New York City or something, or, another big city, you can't afford to pass up that spot because now you might be driving around for like 25 minutes.
It's interesting because that is sometimes my nemesis too, because I live in New York, so I parallel park all the time. And people who can only parallel park on the right side and not the left side, you got to practice on the left side too, because the parking is on both sides.
I mean, I had a car with a stick shift. I do right side, I do left side. Didn't matter.
Yep. Right. And I think that's part of it. I think one of the interesting things is that some cities are trying different ways of having street parking. So there's the back angle in option.
Right.
That is different than parallel parking. And that takes a bit of time to get used to. But once you do, I think it's really good because when you're leaving, it's the best option of all of them.
I hate those people in like a parking lot that is literally just like a supermarket. You don't need to back in for that. You're only going to be there for a half hour, 40 minutes.
That's a parking lot. I'm talking on the street.
I know, but I'm talking to those people now who do it in parking lots, and we have to wait while watching you do this, which is ridiculous considering you're just going food shopping.
Yeah, I always thought that was weird going grocery shopping because don't you have to put your stuff in the trunk, and if that's like in the other side,
right? But I see people doing it all the time.
Yeah, I find that weird in shopping centers. But you want to do that on your own time
at a concert, fine. At a at the Flyers game. I get it. That makes sense.
Right. But with parallel parking, I think it is definitely an important skill. And like my car doesn't have a backup camera or a screen.
Mine do, but
anything.
I don't even use it. I don't want to use it.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing is you should be able to do it without it. And I think it's easier to do it without it. I had a rental car once with this screen and the camera and I couldn't do it. I was just like, what is happening here? I just shut it off. And
I like the backup cameras. If something's behind your car and you didn't see it, it sees it for you. That's great. But for parallel parking, I don't need you.
Don't need it. Absolutely don't need it. That is a challenge to everybody out there to get your parallel parking skills up to snuff. Otherwise, you'll get a non-enforceable ticket from Russ
There you go.
per his nemesis of the week. All right. That will do it for today's show. Like I said, we'll be back on Wednesday to answer your mailbag questions. You can send those in via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. Today, for your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.